What's up, ladies and gentlemakers? It's Julian. Let's stay in focus. Let's talk about the greenhouse effect. It's warming the planet, it's bringing us floods and famine, and it's gonna kill us all. But there is at least one situation where you actually might want the greenhouse effect, which is if you're building a greenhouse. Lately I thought I want to grow some vegetables myself here on this balcony because there's some space left, and I thought maybe I'm gonna build a greenhouse, a nice little tight one that's fitting on this tiny wall there. So as always with these kinds of stuffs, I started with a drawing, thinking about how is this thing supposed to look. I did some measurements and I came up with the first design idea, and this is what I came up with, like 1 meter in length and about 30 centimeters depth and let's say 60 centimeters high. Because I'm a cheap F and I didn't want to go to the hardware store and buy any more stuff, I took old wood that I had left over and sawed it. Did have sawn it with my table saw into lengthy stripes. What I came up with, what I ended up with in the end was this stuffs here. That's my basic material, and then I used this pressed wood stuff, this very cheap stuff for the floor, for the floorboard. So I'm starting to glue it all together with hot glue, and hear me out. I know what you're thinking. Hot glue? Are you crazy? You're gluing wooden pieces with hot glue. Have you never heard of wooden glue? Have you never heard of screws? The reason why I'm doing this, A, is I did it before and it works pretty fine, this method, and B, I'm actually gonna use screws. I just don't have enough clamps to do the liquid wooden glue now and clamp it together and then wait for so long. I just used the hot glue to keep everything in place, and then right away I'm gonna hit the wood with some screws and screw it all together, and then it's tightly fixed, and then, you know, the hot glue. F the hot glue. If it peels off again, if it's not strong enough for the wood, doesn't matter, the screws are in. As you see there, I went a little bit away from my original design with the two wing doors at the bottom part, because I figured they are kind of impractical. If I want to let the plants grow up in the full height of the house, then it's kind of hard to get a plant, including a big pot, out at the bottom, because then you kind of have to put it sideways and move it out sideways and hope that not the whole soil on the plant is falling out. Now, I want to save money. I need to cover this whole thing up. The obvious choice, the beautiful choice, would be acrylic glass or plexiglass, but that's kind of expensive. So I thought I'm gonna go with super cheap, and I bought these covers. Their original use is you can store mattresses in them, so they're a bit thicker and a bit more durable than clear garbage bags, but they're still only like $3. So I'm gonna paint the whole thing white, because it's a very reflective material for once, for the sun coming in, because, you know, a greenhouse should have the actual effect of reflecting a lot of sunlight around inside. So your potatoes or tomatoes or whatever grow very fast. So white, very reflective material, and B, also white, I think looks pretty nice, pretty bright and friendly on my balcony. So, whoop, I mark my sides, cut it out, and glue it in place. So now that it's finished, well, kind of finished, you can put plants inside, and that's what I'm doing. I got some chilies, some habanero chili seeds and some pickle seeds. Let's talk about aggregation. Now, of course, it's quite simple with so few pots to water all the plants individually, but I still have this thing left over where you pump up like water, you pressurize the air inside this container, and then you can push this button and it sprays out. It's kind of like a super soaker. So I bought this tube, and if I put it in the front of this kind of water pistol and cut a bunch of holes in the hose, I can water all the plants with the push of a button at once, which is kind of a lazy move. It's not that much faster than watering all the plants individually, but since I can do and it's quite easy to do, I'm doing it. Now, when you have this mechanism in place and you start thinking and you're really lazy and you're thinking like, how could I be even more lazy? I came to the point of understanding this is the day I'm finally getting into Arduino. I've heard a lot about it, these kind of little microcontrollers, Arduinos, Raspberry Pis. There are different brands, different names, but they are all kind of the same group of tools. They are tiny boards that you can hook up all kinds of electronics to, electronic devices, motors and lights and servos, for example, and then you can plug this thing into your computer and write a bit of very simple code to tell the board how to switch on the different appliances in which way. So I ordered this starter kit, and there were a lot of LEDs and motors and resistors, and I played around with it and I did some tutorials and I made a lot of LEDs blink and blink in different orders. Then I kind of thought, okay, in a way I figured out how this works in the simplest way. So I got a servo and I went on the internet and copied a bit of servo code that somebody else has written before to let the servo do some very simple things, which is going from 0 degrees to 90 degrees to 180 degrees. If you don't know what a servo is basically a motor that can move into certain directions if you tell it to very precisely move to one point, move backwards, something a motor just isn't good at doing because a motor just spins. So, having the servo, having a bit of code that lets this servo go from 1 to 90 to 180 degrees, I just edited the code a little bit to make it go from 0 to 180 degrees just to try it out, if I can just simply edit the code. And it turns out I can. You can just change variables, cut things out that you don't need, and upload it on the board, and it simply does what you want it to do. So I hooked up the servo to my water pistol and I attached some wooden sticks to connect the push button of the water dispenser to the servo. And I figured I need some different variables. I don't need 1 second at each step. I need like 1 second break and then kind of like 3 seconds maybe. And I played it around a little bit and I figured, okay, maybe like 5 seconds. 5 seconds pushing down on the button. That might be a good time to water the plants. Nice. Then I did some testing if there's water actually coming out of the hose, if the servo pulls down on this little wire, and it did! The only thing left to do is change the pause from 1 second to 24 hours minus 5 seconds, because I want to water my plants once a day for 5 seconds. For safety reasons, because it's still kind of outside, I'm gonna put the whole board and most of the cables and the little power bank that I'm powering everything with into this jar that has a nice rubber sealing ring and kind of keeps it dry. Let's put it in the greenhouse, and another 24 hours have passed. I bring the camera over and let's check if the computer is on time. And it is! I put these little wires in there to keep the hose in the pot kind of, so this water doesn't spray everywhere. As you can see, there's still room for improvement there. I can maybe like push it down a little more. But yeah, it works! Once every 24 hours, my greenhouse is watering itself, which is kind of the epiphany of laziness, to have a greenhouse like 1 step outside my room and not wanting to water it. But if that's not the spirit of making, I don't know what is. Thanks so much for watching. By the way, this is my 50th video I just found out. I'm very thankful to you that you're watching. See you next week. Subscribe if you like this shit. And toodaloo!